All right, welcome. Good afternoon. My name is Miss Ruskowski, and I am doing the video for knife skills. I'm going to show you that I am ready to be in the kitchen. So my hair is up in a bun. It's not, flopping around. Anybody who has long hair needs to pull it up. Make sure it's tied in a bun, not having long ponytails, things like that. If it's not long enough to pull back, put on a hat or something so that your hair is not getting in your foods. And then I'm also going to roll up my sleeves because I want to make sure that my clothes do not get into the way of cutting. Right, so I'm going to roll these up a little, right, and then push them up so that they are up more near my elbows so that they're not in my food. And then the last thing you'll notice is that I am in fact wearing sneakers. Yes, I am in my own home, but this is kind of standard for what we should be doing when we're in the kitchen, right? So in the first video, we were cutting vegetables and fruit. And so you need to show me all the different types of knives that you have at home. You may only have one or two, that's fine. You might have a whole block set, whatever it is. I just want to see what we have. So for me, I have this chef's knife right here, right? I also have a bread knife or serrated knife, as you can see the little teeth at the edge. I also have what we call a Santoku knife, right? Similar to a chef's knife, but it's flat instead of kind of a little rounded. And then I also have a paring knife, right? And so it's nice and small, and I will show you kind of how to use that as well. And then the last thing is my honing stick, right? Sometimes you may also have a bench knife. Looks like this. If you have it, you can also show me that as well. Okay, so today I'm going to use my chef's knife, as well as I'm going to show a couple of things with the paring knife. Right, so honing stick, chef's knife, right, you're going to go from the bottom to the top. The purpose of this is to make sure that your blade is nice and sharp, right? So on a slight angle, you're going to go bottom to top, both sides, right? And this is what helps to sharpen your knife, right? Same thing with this one. I'm going to sharpen this as well just to make sure. Now, before you go to use this, right, you want to take a damp paper cloth, or paper towel, I should say, because there is a possibility of some little metal shards, right, and then just wipe it off carefully, just to make sure that you don't get any of those metal shards in there. And same thing for that one as well, and you'll notice that when I clean this, I clean it with the spine in my hand. Right, during class, we talked about the parts of the knife, right? This is the spine, so when you go to do anything to clean, dry, whatever, you want to make sure that the spine is in your hand and clearly not the blade, right, for any knife. All right, so there are 4 knife skills that you need to do. Make sure that you wash whatever your produce is. I'm going to show you an apple in this video, so I'm going to just tilt this down so you can see it. Right, and then I'm going to demonstrate and talk about all the different things with the apple. Right, so I need my apple into 4 pieces. 1, notice my fingers are on these sides, nowhere near the blade. Right, and so now I have 2 pieces, and I'm going to put them down flat so that they're not moving. Right, and then now I have 4 pieces. Now, I didn't talk about my cutting board because my cutting board actually has little feet at the bottom. I can show you, right? But if you do need to put a paper towel down, please show me that so I can see it. And also when you're cutting any produce, I always have just kind of some kind of bowl for scraps, okay? Now I have these 4 pieces, right? So one way to cut this out, a lot of people would say, oh, just take your paring knife and cut like this. But I don't do that because I never teach you to cut in your hand. We always use the cutting board, right? And I never tell you to cut towards yourself, right? So if you have a paring knife, you can do this with a paring knife. But what happens is that I just cut it on a slight angle, like so, right? And so I take out the inside, right? If you don't have a paring knife, or you want to use your chef's knife, you can do the same thing. And this time, cut it, and there you go. Right? Either way, we don't eat the core. Interestingly, apple seeds in large quantities are toxic to you. Okay, they are poisonous. Cut that one, and then the last one, I cut away. Okay, so we don't like to eat apple seeds. If you eat an apple seed, you'll be fine. But if you eat whole apples all the time, you might start getting some apple seed poisoning. All right, so 4 pieces, right? And I want you guys to work. We're gonna do 4 different things, right? So slicing, right? You're gonna take your apple. So notice that because you cut out that core there, it actually kind of leaves a flat surface for you to work with, which works out, right? When you hold your knife, right, make sure that your your pointer finger, index finger is underneath, right? And then your thumb can be here, it can be up here, whichever is more comfortable. The only thing you want to make sure is that you do not do this, right? This is not a safe way to cut because it's also very kind of wobbly. Part of the reason you have your finger down here, your index finger, is to help keep it stable, right? And then your other hand, right, is going to be, you're going to have these 3 fingers, these 2 back, and then the middle one up front to help guide. And then you're going to slice away from your body. Slicing away. This is called to slice, right? Now, if you don't have the chef knife and you want to use the paring knife, do the same thing, right? But your paring knife is not going to rock back and forth the way your chef knife does. So you're going to be more kind of cutting down, okay? Right? If you get to a point where that apple starts to get wobbly, stop, right? It's just easier to leave that extra little apple there instead of trying to cut your finger off, right? So now you have kind of like little apple chips, right? That is to slice, right? Now we want to julienne, okay? So instead of slicing the short way, we're going to actually slice the long way. So what's going to happen is I'm going to take my knife, position my fingers, okay, fingers behind, knuckle out, right, and then I'm just going to slice. Slice nicely like so, all right. If my apple starts to get wobbly again, okay, I can just cut again to create that nice flat surface again, and then just continue to cut, all right. Now, I've sliced first, that's why I demonstrate slicing first, because you always have to slice. Now we need to julienne, right? Julienne means matchsticks, okay? If you ever need a little matchstick to light a fire, you know how they're nice and thin and small. That's what we're looking for. So what's going to happen is now I'm going to take my slice, okay? I stacked a couple on top so I can cut them together, okay? And now I'm going to just cut them into thin slices, right, to julienne. So now I have what we call matchsticks, or julienne my apple. Right, so you're going to take the rest of your apple and julienne the rest of your apple. So cut away from your body into thin matchsticks, okay, as we go, okay, here we go. All right, and so we should have lovely matchsticks from my apple. All right, so you can see my matchsticks, and then on to the next one, which is going to be large dice, right? So large dice is going to be similar in that I need to slice it first, but this time instead of making them really, really thin, we're going to slice them a little thicker, all right? So slicing them a little bigger, okay? Yes, it's okay if they're a little thicker because this is what we call a large dice, right? So I'm going to take my large dice now and I'm going to cut it and julienne this, but they're going to be nice and big. Okay, what you want to do is try to get uniformity, meaning that they all are around the same size. Right, and now what I need to do is I need to take this, right, and now I need to cut it into large dice. So instead of, I've already sliced it this way, and now I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to slice it this way. Notice my fingers are still in, and I'm slicing away from myself. I'm cutting away from myself. All right, so same thing with this one. Okay, away from the body, fingers tucked in, away from the blade, right? So you should end up with large cubes. If you do it correctly, ideally your cube should be about the same size. Okay, so again, slicing away from yourself, fingers tucked in. And now we have a beautiful large dice. All right, and so now we've got sliced julienne and large dice. The last one is small dice, or otherwise known as brunoise. So what we're going to do is, because it's smaller dice, we have to slice it thinner. So what's going to happen is you're going to slice this lengthwise again, but this time nice and thin slices. If they build up, push them off. Nice thin slices. All right, so you can see how it's nice and thin compared to the large dice. Right now, we need to julienne this. All right, so I'm just going to take a couple and stack them up. All right, and now we're going to julienne my apple. Oops, if it slides, it means there's too many. And now I'm going to julienne, so I should have nice, small, thin matchsticks. Keep them together. All right. And then after I've julienne some of these, I am then going to small dice or brunoise these matchsticks. Okay. So you'll see that I have all these lovely matchsticks, nice and thin. And so I'm going to line them all up. Right. What I like to do is match up the edges, like so. You can stack them on top of each other if you would like, if you're comfortable with cutting more than a few at a time. If you're not, cut with whatever amount you're comfortable with, right? But now we're going to cut these in small dice. And small dice is again called brunoise. Focusing on the cut, focusing on where my fingers are, making sure that I don't lose any fingers. All right, and so now my brunoise should be these tiny, tiny, tiny little cuts. All right, so I'll show you all of my cuts again just so that you can see them. Okay, so we have the slice, which look like apple chips, and then we have the julienne, which look like matchsticks. We have the large dice, which should look like larger cubes. If I can find some at the bottom, that looks better. Okay, large cubes. All right, and then comparatively to the large cube, I should also then have little brunoise, little tiny small dice. Okay. If you're not, a couple things that you could do. Number one, you could just eat it. Number two, you could throw it in a pot and just put a little water in it, let it cook, and it will cook down to applesauce. If you're not going to use it right away, I would put a little lemon juice on top if you have it, so that it doesn't go brown. That browning is called oxidation, and the little acid from that lemon will help prevent it from turning brown. Okay, so if you have any questions, refer to this video, and I hope that you learned a little. This is what your video should look like. You don't need to go into as much detail, but you should explain to me what you're doing as you're cutting it. You should also make sure that you've included your name, right, showing me that you're from head to toe, you are all ready to be cooking. And then also making sure that you show me all the knives you have in the kitchen, right? Explaining to me how you're going to hold your knife, explaining to me how you're going to hold your food, and then the different types of cuts. Right. Thank you so much.